think we've shown the research world so much. We've shown how, with the right support and the right mechanisms in place, how much we can do. I'm sure that's never been done before. So I think the impact that we've had is quite huge. I mean, I'm not saying they've all got it right at the moment, but at least they're looking differently at the way they involve us.
I think we have kick-started a process whereby co-production research groups are being established. I also think that producing the gold standards report was brilliant, and people refer to it a lot. And whenever I now say, "Oh, you have read that, haven't you?" and they say, "Yes, we have."
What it gave to people living with dementia and their groups was the confidence to use the tools that we produced as a group, like the gold standards, etc., that they can do the research. And so I know that I myself personally and the alumni, we feel quite confident using the tools that the pioneers and what we've used and the Dementia Inquiry has done, to stand side by side with researchers, confident that we are equal co-producers in this, not being done to. And that, I think, that has been massive.
Is that we've got people with dementia on one platform, and at least, you know, they have their say, and there are people that are listening to us.
We have made a difference to what researchers look at researching. So they're looking now at things, and with a measure of surprise, but welcome, at researching things that we feel are important. In some cases, they have led to change or to campaigning for change. They've produced evidence that is useful. And the one I obviously would quote would be mine in Shropshire, where it has led, at least in part, to getting Admiral nurses into Shropshire and a new model for dementia care.
I think it has had an effect on researchers. Certainly the gold standards has been a useful thing we've produced. But it's also helped people with dementia as well to take part in research and to do their own research, because it's demystified the process.
I'm aware of not only the incredible impact that's taken place in the UK, but beyond. It's inspired dementia-driven groups in Ireland, in the US, in Canada, and the Global Brain Health Institute. They're doing dementia-led research, people with dementia-led research as well. So it's really inspired, I think, a global impact, and that should be acknowledged and celebrated as well.
I think what really shone through for me was the confidence thing about, you know, being able to hold your own around researchers and hopefully demystify some of that idea of what being a researcher is. But there's definitely there's learning on both sides, but I think some of it is just about having the confidence to take your place and own that space, and battle some of that probable imposter syndrome that we often call it.
It's been impressive what has been done, and the way it's been done. So I think it's just brilliant. I absolutely adore this piece of work. I think it's amazing, and I would say this is work in a difficult space. It always leads to interesting and unexpected benefits in other places. It's changed my brain. It's led to really interesting thinking that I hope will contribute to a lasting legacy for this work. So I'm just blown away by the quality and joy that this work has brought.
I love what's happened on this journey, and between us, with a more equal partnership, we hope we'll solve some of the problems.
So for me, it has been a really steep learning curve on how much we have to offer but how that also has to be part of a bigger structure if it's going to go anywhere and if it's going to make a real difference.
I've learned that there's more resistance than I expected from people outside of this more co-produced style of research, and having to do more than I think we would like to do in reinforcing why it's important to engage with people with lived experience, and also the incredible additional strength. It's not just that it is part of research, it completely adds a whole extra dimension to your work.
Reminding you that Adelina Herreras has got funding from the NIHR to look at dementia support in some areas of UK. It's called a theory of change process, which you guys, I am hoping, will participate in. This was evidence that some of the powers that be think that you know what you're talking about, and it might be worth listening to you.
But I think that's what I think we've learned together, is to have confidence in our abilities together, to scaffold each other, support each other, learn together. And so I think that is a huge legacy, and a lot has been achieved and learned for you as a group of pioneers, but also for the projects that have run. And you see that same experience play out in those 20 projects that we'll have hosted over the last few years. But I guess what I'm also left with is that there's a kind of slight uniqueness and specialness to what we've done in Dementia Inquirers, and that's brilliant, and so be it. That's kind of one of the goals was to work with groups who were really up for it and wanted to take on the research questions. But actually there's a lot of other people with dementia and a lot of other groups in the Deep Network who either might not be interested, and that's okay, or might not be confident, and that perhaps there's a space there for us to help them to gain from what we've all gained from over the last year.
Getting more co-produced approaches into the NHS is hard, but at the same time it's becoming possible because we have examples like Dementia Inquirers. And so in kind of working with them to restructure a lot of what we're doing to make it more kind of user-led, or whichever term we want to go with, I think that in itself is showing that we're able to say, look, this is going on and it's been working, and this is how they've done it. And seeing that ripple effect in the work I do, but also then in the approach my colleagues take. And even thinking about, I don't ever think now when I'm advising on any kind of co-production, I don't feel like I'm just giving my experience. I feel like I'm bringing all of the experience from work like this. And it really helps to kind of, to strengthen the work overall. I personally feel it's spreading. I'm aware that that's very much to where I direct my work now. So it's just building that to become the norm. You want what Dementia Inquirers have done to be the norm of this type of research. So yes, I think it's had a wider impact than you can maybe see within this group.
If I'm honest, I think we are one of many bubbles, and the trick is to try and coordinate these bubbles into something a little bit bigger. And having done, contributed to a very similar, then groundbreaking project many years ago, which is still influential, but only to those who know, and then partially influential for a lot of other stuff, because those who were trained in it went on to do other stuff and it influenced them, and it has influenced this project. So we consider DEEP to be part of the legacy of Strategies for Living. Although almost no one will know or think about it in that way. That's a little bit of the DNA that's in here. It's like the evolution of species. You only really spot a new species retrospectively. And we have been working on a new species of research and a new research paradigm for a very, very, very long time. And we were building on the shoulders of previous giants trying to change research paradigms. Feminist work and other pan disability work and so on. So we are all part of this process of chipping away and generating a new way of understanding knowledge. I think we are a bubble. I think we're an important bubble. And if you've ever watched bubbles, then sometimes they kind of bump into each other and pop into a bigger bubble. And that's the kind of thing you need to do, or they clump together into clouds of bubbles. And that's how it works. And, you know, this in itself is not going to change the research world. It will have a tiny wee impact, and it will be alongside a lot of other tiny wee impacts, and those tiny wee impacts grow over time, and every single one of them is really important as part of a whole.
And I think that it is about the cumulative effect. But then if we look at the evolution of species, every now and then there's a breakthrough, there's a logjam burst, and suddenly we're into a new way of thinking. And I think we are approaching that time. And certainly in my work, whenever I want to show a good example of co-production, I talk about dementia inquirers, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And if we all, as ambassadors of our work here together, celebrate it and publicize it, I mean, it's right, David's right, it won't change the world, but it will add to other ways, and together we will change the world. But I think we have begun to influence the funders, and things like the NIHR social care stuff that I'm talking about with Adelina Herreras, you know, they're very good examples. They get it. They know that this is what they need to be supporting. And things like our paper that we did together in Disability and Society, and the work that Rosie's done and others have done, this all helps, and bit by bit we get there.